Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Captain Marvel Prelude. Now, I'm usually not a fan of these. The thing is, I always have extremely high expectations for them, and I actually stopped reading them for a while because you get like maybe a panel. If you're lucky, 2 panels worth of new information in them, but for the most part, it's just simply a repeat of everything that happened in the movies at some point or another. And yeah, I know, maybe some of you guys are the first time you're looking at a prelude book. You're like, well, how can you've already seen the stuff that happened in the Captain Marvel? Well, just look on the front. Right? That's the end credits scene from the Avengers 3. Spoilers for a movie that happened back in May. You know what I'm saying? What do you call it? That's all that these books ever are, and that's always annoyed me so much because of the immense lost potential in this. Is this one any different? I can assure you I would not be reviewing the comic book if it were if it weren't different. So yeah, this was still very similar to that methodology, which is fine because I guess, but there's more than enough new material here. And not even so much as new material, but more specifically behind the scenes material, which is in and of itself by very definition new, but it's more than that. I'm going to get into that first, credit where credit is due. This issue is called The Peacemakers. Will Corona Pilgrim is the writer, Andrea DeVito is the artist, Laura Villari is on colors, and VC's Travis Lanham is the letterer. All that being said, bang, Kevin Feige is the president of Marvel Cinematics, the Marvel Studios. So, yeah, this book, it starts off with a little bit of something about what happened over in Sokovia back in Age of Ultron. One of the Ultrons is actually destroyed. I did see something mentioned online about how the light is still on. Yeah, but you know, not over here. It doesn't look like the light is. If they would have kept the light on there, that would have maybe said something. But like they stabbed it and then they walked away from it or just, you know, kind of left it there. It's hard to tell. But either way, it's just one of those things where it's like, no, actually, I guess it is still in front of them because of the way that Maria Hill is looking at it. You can never see the way that Nick Fury's looking at it. It's like it's somewhere on this side. Anyway, a whole lot of stuff that we expect that's going to happen continually. It's, you know, it's for all intents and purposes, it's not bad. It's not bad, but then it starts to get into some really good details. All right. It shows that Fury and Hill were actually paying attention to what happened during the Civil War, which makes sense. Makes sense, right? Remember, Nick Fury went off the grid. He went completely off the grid in Captain America, right? He showed up really briefly, you know, whatever. Just he's gone. He's gone. There is no more Nick Fury for all intents and purposes. If you want to see him, go check out a very scantily few couple of episodes of Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. All right. Once again, he didn't get. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't even get credit in this book. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're the ones who actually had the helicarrier. Nick Fury said, hey, man, you still got that helicarrier that we got in mothballs? And Agent Coulson's like, oh, yeah, I got that. Sure, let me hook you up. And then he gives it to him, and he goes and he uses it. Takes all the credit for it. Doesn't even bother saying, oh, by the way, Coulson's still alive, guys. And no, nothing. Maybe it's all super duper top secret. Don't know, don't care. But man, what's the purpose of even having this amazing show if you're not going to incorporate it in some way, shape, or form in the freaking movie? Anyway, even Kevin Feige's open to scrutiny, man. Anyway, there's a lot of back and forth, and what I mean by that is there are a bunch of things brought up, a bunch of conversations brought up from even way back in the first Avengers movie. So I really dug that. But these guys wind up going underground. Oh, it's also important to remember that Maria Hill started working for Stark at a certain point. If you remember the end of Captain America Civil War, she was getting an interview in Stark Enterprises, Stark Industries, whatever the heck it's called in the movie. We get to see that Maria Hill goes up to have a conversation with Stark to see if he's willing to break the ice and call up Cap and be like, listen, we need to reform this group. You know that the Superhero Registration Act was an absolute bust. It was a great idea on paper. The problem is it was written on toilet paper. So, you know, there's that. I know there's a bunch of people who love the idea of, oh, no, man, Robert Downey Jr. was great in the movie. I have no doubt. Robert Downey Jr. was amazing in every single one of those movies. But if you think that Tony Stark was correct with the Superhero Registration Act, he acted on emotion. Isn't that something that we usually, always say about women? Oh, she's too emotional. Tony Stark was nothing but emotional. Okay? Nothing but a big ball of nerves and emotion. And it was a bit much. It was a bit much. He was 100% in the wrong on this. Any ideal that he could have possibly had that was noble, lost in a wash of emotions. So there's that. When you look at it, Tony Stark, Nick Fury is approaching both of them. Nick Fury actually that's the thing, he doesn't trust Tony Stark. You can't trust Tony Stark! So he refuses to show Tony Stark that he's still alive. And he instead sends Maria Hill. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, hey, why don't you call up Cap? Why don't you try and, bridge the gap, patch up and whatnot. He's like, no. Once again, his head is still stuck in his freaking devices. You see him making this new version of his armor that we saw in Avengers 3, where it's all nano armor, and it could just form around him. Oh, some of it got destroyed. That's okay. Compensation, and it'll fix itself up again. He makes the shields and all that stuff. We get to see his testing of that armor in this issue. Fantastic. I love the behind the scenes, man. But Nick Fury tries to approach Cap. Cap's not going to fall for that crap. Cap did the best he could. Like, what's he supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? The thing that kills me about this, Cap points out simple things. He says, I gave him a phone. I gave him a way to contact me. If he wants to contact me, he'll contact me. He's actually on the streets doing stuff. He's actually still actively doing stuff. What's Tony Stark doing? All right, he's engaging meetings and blah, 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 whatever it is, the latest Stark Expo and stuff like that. He's doing his thing, all right? He's doing him, literally him. That's his ego in play, 100% all the time. He actually thought that he could go and confront, these guys, just 2 of the Black Order in the Avengers 3, Infinity War. I mean, come on, man. Come on, you're telling me there's no tactical assessment on that? Because we know that there is. At some point, he should have realized this is a losing battle. I need to just buck up and call Cap because this is stupid. At some point, this particular point in time, this is stupid. But that's Stark's mentality, and Robert Downey Jr. plays that off perfectly. All right. But at this point, like seriously, if Cap after he went, not only just gave him the phone, he wrote him a letter. He wrote him a handwritten letter. I want you to think about all the craziness that's happening in the White House and whatnot. And one of the few times that that Mr. Trump started to make this political, but let's just call things what it is. I'm not going to sit here and get into political opinions because I hate both sides, both parties. I despise the 2-party system and the 2 individual parties. They're ridiculous. Just heads up. But one of the few times that Donald Trump was actually very civil when he was referring to this person who he hates in President Obama, the former President Obama, is when he wrote him a letter, a handwritten letter. He's constantly complimented that letter. It was a beautiful letter. I hope everything he said in it was true. It was a really beautiful letter. He loved the idea that he hand wrote him this letter, right? The power of the pen, all right? The power of actually handwriting a letter. You can't write a letter to someone in the same way that we talk on the streets. I don't care what dialect, what slang you use. I don't care. You can't, because there's a very formal way when it comes to writing, and you have to think out, you actually have an opportunity to think out your words before you write them down. You have a chance to reassess what you're about to say. You have the opportunity to use an eraser, something that our mouths don't have, right? So he wrote him a letter. I really hope it comes across to the Marvel movies how important it was. He wrote him a letter. Anybody who's just going to dismiss that has never had a letter written to them and has never written a letter. And that's also a damn shame in this super technological world of ours. I helped create wireless internet, so don't tell me I'm not technologically savvy. Anyway, So he does mention all of these things, but through all of it, yeah, I know there's no Captain Marvel in this, right? So there is the what is it? There's the conversation in here briefly where we just it just way too quickly goes into the Oh, for crying out loud. Well, basically this. All right, this is how the book ends. It way too quickly goes to this point. There we go. The third Avengers movie. It way too quickly goes into this. It's funny and it's sad. Nick Fury never got to see sending. He's already dust. Never got to see that this call actually made it through. He never got to see that this call made it all the way through. So that's really sad, man. You know, I don't know if enough of us really realized that in the movie. It never even really occurred to me in the movie. I just remember every time I saw the movie, I'm just like, damn, they're calling Captain Marvel. But in this book, seeing, you know, there's the time frame that we have to think, to understand this. Nick Fury died not knowing if that call made it through or not. Oof, man, that's a hell of a way to go. He still has that much hope in the plans that he's enacted. I can't wait to see Captain Marvel. I can't wait to see Captain Marvel. Because besides the background of some of the stuff that happens in here, besides the idea that we see that maybe, just maybe, it seems as though Nick Fury and Maria Hill, by default, were responsible for Captain America being able to not only locate, but break into the raft in order to rescue his friends. That was probably my favorite part of this entire thing. But on top of that, we get to see that Nick Fury has a tremendous amount of faith in Captain Marvel. That alone makes it worthy of being called a Captain Marvel Prelude. I was hoping to see a little something about Captain Marvel. Just a little hint, but nope, we get nothing. We got more from the trailer than we could have possibly eked out from this comic book. You know what I'm saying? It says issue 1. I don't know if that means it's a one-shot or not, but either way, I'm hoping that there's an issue 2. In fact, these things usually do go to issue 2s. That's usually as far as they go. Sometimes they'll go to 4 issues, but it's usually 2 issues of this movie, 2 issues of that movie. Either way, this was surprisingly a really, really good Marvel Studios Prelude book. Usually these Prelude books suck. Like, they're so disappointing. The little tiny bit of info that they'll give us, they're terrible in that regard. But in this particular case, no. This one I think was worth it. And realistically, I think I've given you mostly all the information that you need from this book. So if you want to save your money, that's fine. It's one of the few times that I actually give everything that's in a comic book. I'm sure there's more stuff that I didn't really notice. There are some other things that I did see other people talking about online. I saw an article, I think it was We Got This Covered or whatever it was. Whoever it is that did an article about it, they had some points in that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm just like, no, I think you're reaching on that one. But whatever, my opinion, their opinion, just as valid as each other. Either way, I do believe this was a good book. Do you need this in your collection? Only if you're a Captain Marvel fan. And that's real talk. Only if you're an actual Captain Marvel fan. This book is kind of crucial. But I enjoyed this book. This was definitely a good book. A good book to read. There was good information in there. Not about Captain Marvel, really. But about the movies in general, the behind the scenes. And I love a good behind the scenes. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.